nice. So let me thank the chamber for the invitation extended to me that gives me the opportunity to participate once again in the tax forum. And let me tell you that it's a very conscious choice to discuss with a businessman. It is interesting to discuss about taxes and economy, but taxes would be senseless unless there were production, unless there were productive tissue. Therefore, I will be discussing today with Mr. Klimis Tsaklidis, which is a classic medium company, which is in the spine of Greek economy. Mr. Klimis, why is the company that you represent today a classic paradigm of a Greek company? Good afternoon to all. First of all, allow me also to thank for the invitation and the opportunity given through this forum to express and convey some concerns that pest the classic, so-called classic Greek companies. Now, to address a question, we have 9 billion euros of turnover, and we employ 80 persons, more or less. And it's a classic Greek company because we are a purely family company, as it happens with most Greek companies, governed intensely by the family character. Well, this is all, more or less, if I want to say. Well, that's very interesting, says the moderator. It's true that Greek companies do have the family element very intense, even if they are SE, LTD, that is, regardless of their legal form, the family character is an element. Besides, everyone says in Greece, the capital has a name and surname, while in classical capitalism, this doesn't apply. On the other hand, these companies, can they stand in the globalized environment? That is, companies that have very intense family and personal characteristics in the administration. Can they withstand and uphold competition? Not only can they survive, but actually they can also thrive, to my view. I usually hear that the size of these companies is a deficit, is a disadvantage vis-à-vis big companies, but the flexibility of our size is an advantage, actually. Besides, recently we have seen that many big companies have turned to subcontracting, aiming at a more effective, productive operation. I suppose that you're also assisted by the evolution of technology, IT, that is taking orders, placement of orders from abroad. Yes, obviously, yes, we're greatly assisted in that. Let me ask something else, however. I know, I say it on the air, you made a special production as a company when COVID was launched. You are the ones that produced the masks, regardless of if someone knows it or not. This was an evolution which I suppose greatly served Greek economy. In what way did you manage to do so, however? How were you linked with the production? Yes, it's true that we are the company that was the first to produce the well-known masks against COVID-19 in cooperation with the Medical Society of Thessaloniki and the president, Mr. Tsaklidis, who presented the respective technical standards. We managed at the very beginning of the pandemic to adapt and transform our assembly line so as to plan and produce and provide to all Greek hospitals, and not solely there, masks, and a very competitive price, even vis-à-vis the imported masks from China. So this was a great feat. For me, it's a great important element and shows what is the offer of Greek economy, especially when it is a productive company. And therefore, I consider that it's interesting to view how these companies survive. Can these companies, however, without having the staffing of technocrats, but staffed through members of the family, can they stand and uphold competition, global competition? Well, listen, the BOD by members of the family is at the first steps of those companies. If at the same time with the growth, technocrats are not involved in BOT, but always in cooperation with the shareholders, we will never have a successful paradigm. Therefore, my view is that a rational coexistence between technocrats, executives, and members of the family is an advantage and a key to success. So that is very pleasant. Let me ask something more that we perhaps should view. It is only not logical if the public dialogue and discourse in the country mentions those companies, I suppose that the state should also be beneficial vis-à-vis those companies, although this is not the case, I believe. Do you believe that there are actions that or steps that the state should take? Well, that's clear. Yes, there are such measures that are beneficial for such companies. Could you rephrase your question again? Says the discussant. Yes, the question is whether the Greek state supports, as it should, the Greek companies, or does it have as a primordial mission attracting foreign investment? Well, they must give attention to companies of our size and not underestimate them vis-à-vis foreign investment. Of course, FDI is very important for our country, but imagine if we have in the future foreign companies and having the existing Greek companies closing down. That would create a negative balance on many levels, and especially employment. Well, you see, in Greece, more than 55% of the labor market is covered by SMEs, and therefore what we call a classic Greek company. The law, however, the recent law on mergers and cooperation, isn't it a law that offers incentives and assists companies to be enhanced, perhaps to overcome also this family character? Would you believe that it will yield? To be honest, I do not believe so. I'm not a firm believer of that, because looking back to the tax history, there have been many similar situations and bills and laws adopted that did not have the respective result. I don't know what will change now. And I wonder whether we aim at real economy, as we said. We speak of family companies. I consider that during the adoption of such bills, we should put the emphasis on the social theory of Greeks, that they all want to be bosses of themselves. That's why they don't attain their goal. Yes, I suppose you're right. Anyway, you are young, so whoever examines the history of the country will see that indeed such a law has existed. 2326 of 96 was a major effort for that, but has failed. There are many such laws in Greece which did not manage to convince the Greek small or medium-sized company to merge with others. And perhaps the view here that economy is a social science and therefore it's justified. When one drafts a bill, one must bear into consideration the social data, because unless one takes into consideration social data, this Greek society particularities, if you like, one is doomed to fail. Another, however, interesting issue is this transfer, the passing down from generation to generation. And we should discuss it here with regard on how this is passed over, and also the latest law on tax exemption for property value up to 800,000 euros. Well, listen, the major problem is the greater tax burden due to inheritance taxes from one generation to the other. And this is something that has to be examined. It's true that 800,000 euros tax exemption is tax exempted, is towards the right direction. But which SME which competes at global scale has so low equity? And if it does so, 800,000 euros do not cover merely that gap, that is the shares inheritance from a generation to the other, but as it was mentioned beforehand, it's the issue of property, of real estate inherited. So yes, this law is to the right direction, But we should examine separately the issue of equity share inheritance from one generation to the other. Unless this happens, there will be negative prejudice against family companies, I believe. Well, yes, indeed, there is a great concern. But there is currently a disposition according to which the transfer from a legal entity to a legal entity is tax exempted, while this is not the case for physical persons, which existed in the past. In 2003, we had the law when there was inheritance in a family company from one generation to the other, there was a special regime where the shares were inherited with a mere 1.2% tax, a kind of stamp fee. And this offered the possibility to have a succession in Greek companies, which has helped in the evolution in due course with regard to what we currently witness in Greek companies. And I believe that we should examine it. Yes, something similar should happen now as well. Yes, you're right in that, in this process. Let alone, when I think of it, what pops in mind is another element of concern. Perhaps you don't know it. The way this inheritance share value is calculated. The particularity is that we use the old tax regime and with reference to accounting standards which are abolished. Presidential decree, therefore, that is abolished is currently the basis used for the way in IRS services try to calculate the tax on the shares inherited, passed down. Yes, it's true. You consider, however, the current regime according to which these companies are treated. Does it help them in attracting personnel? Can they do something more? Listen, as you said beforehand, prosperity of companies, medium-sized companies, helps at the level of unemployment a lot. Would you be able to attract people from brain drain? Yes, either brain drain or brain gain, whatever. Let us view the problem per se. We want to bring back a Greek scientist or keep a Greek scientist, not leaving the country, be it an engineer, an economist, whatever. The specific person makes the choice to leave the country, mainly due to the great many advantages offered by other countries, Germany, Switzerland, and so forth, in payment and so forth. Now, whether us SMEs offer respective salaries, no, definitely we cannot. Of course, we could offer a very decent income to that person, and why not? Also offer some dividend from profitability. But this is banned. Yes, it's not only banned, but also it is taxed. So we don't only have the taxing, additionally we have the social security funds of additional contributions on any bonus one would like to offer to such an employee. Yes, you're right. I must tell you actually now, sitting in Thessaloniki, there is a big history. It is one of the irrationalities in the Greek reality. When one wants to retain an employee, putting him a shareholder in the profits, then one has to pay not only taxes, but also additional social contribution. That is at 50% of the salary. That is of the 10,000 salary, the person has 5,000 in pocket. It's inconceivable, and this does not go hand in hand with current reality. That would be a tool, that is the possibility to participate even in the form of bonus in the profits without additional social security benefits, would be a great tool and would act as a brain gain, because the reduction of tax at premises for someone at 50% is not so effective. Through the profits sharing, one could offer such kind of prerogative. The truth is that the legislator offered such a right that is the discretionary power of stock option. But the question is whether a Greek family company would offer shares to a third party. No, I don't think that would happen. It's not the way there's modus operandi. Actually, when I read this disposition, I thought that this is an excellent disposition, but it is copy-paste from foreign countries, and it is not adapted to the social data of the Greek society. That's why you said the participation of its participation in the profits without the burdening of social security contribution would be rational move and will give an incentive to someone to come back from abroad or not leave at all. Let me say something else, however. As far as I know, you have a plant at Klimis, close to the border. So that brings you close to the neighboring countries with a lower social contribution rates and so forth. Yes, that's true. As you said, we are at Klimis, and it's very easy for any company to take its equipment and be relocated to a neighboring country at a lower taxation rate. The non-pecuniary cost is lower, the contribution is lower. As for in Bulgaria, for instance, only 10% of calculation, 32% of social security instead of 36, and they're far more competitive than our companies. And now that you see it, I think that there was a program in 2007 to boost those companies so as to maintain the personnel there and have them supported, which, if I'm not mistaken, you collected last year. Yes, 10 years at the time. In 2007, I was not in the company, but I know that we collected last year. That is 13 years to collect the payment. Yes, it's to the right direction, but things should happen on a timely way. It's true, because as you said, all companies which are neighboring to countries of a far more beneficial, more flexible tax regime do have an issue. And actually, we must also assess that all our surrounding countries are like that, unfortunately. It's not like in the mid-Europa where tax rates are higher. Yes, let me also raise another issue on what you said. It does have to do with social security contribution and taxation. It has to do with the fact that we are in Kilkis, neither in Thessaloniki nor in Athens. And in the industrial park where we are, there are many significant companies that I could mention. And an important, simple but important issue is infrastructure, dominant issue. The internet that we have in our area is ancient indeed, and I wonder how can we compete current reality on such slow internet? How can we expand in e-trade, have a modern CRM program, and why not? How can we work with my data and any new thing coming in the market currently? Yes, now that I think of it, you're right. With such infrastructure, it's very difficult to keep up with the pace, even the desired growth that the state wishes, be it my data or anything else. And because I've had the previous panel of lawyers speaking of although this is valid and not applied and implemented by the IRS, is something that passes, I believe, that such an issue would facilitate you. Well, in conclusion, is there something else that you would like to point out? Well, another concern, quickly, since we are an export company over the last 15, 20 years, and I consider that this is something that should be boosted in our country, in the recent tax incentives introduced, they were offered for advertisement campaigns within domestic, but not for information campaigns and advertisement abroad. They should think of that. Yes, you're right. Yes, you're absolutely right, because that disposition refers that advertisement concerns those who are in the Greek registry. You're right. The state should do it. Well, time expires, Mr. Klimis. I don't know whether you want to add something. So, helping you, I would like to say that what we should retain from such a panel is that Greek companies are mainly medium-sized companies, as yourself, which, however, are the spine of the country, and this is the real economy. And the state must bear in mind that when they discuss economy and taxation, they should not make a merely copy-paste from abroad. They should be adopted to the Greek reality. Thank you for the invitation.